Welcome to Black Nouveau. This is our edition for November. I'm Joanne Williams. A few weeks ago, the Milwaukee Press Club welcomed its 2017 class of journalists into the Media Hall of Fame. Among the inductees were Mike Anderson, Michael Holt, Gary Howard, and the late Eric Vaughn. Michael Holt is also a Vietnam War veteran, and he shares some of his Vietnam experiences with us. City Health Commissioner Bevan Baker joins us to discuss the shortened open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, and will meet the newest inductees into the Negro Leagues Wall of Honor. You know, recently I had the honor to MC the NAACP's Freedom Fund dinner. Groundbreaking diversity trainer and human rights advocate Jane Elliott was the featured speaker. James Causey spoke with her.
Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. Let me tell you something. When white people hear Black Lives Matter, they immediately interpret it to mean only Black Lives Matter, because we're ignorant. The number one quality that you can assign to us, most white people, is ignorance. Not privilege, not privilege. We are ignorant people because we don't have to learn about those who are different from ourselves.
This is Jane Elliott, educator and activist, speaking at the NAACP Milwaukee Branch Freedom Fund dinner held recently at the Pfister Hotel. Elliott is best known for her Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise, which focuses on discrimination and racial segregation and how it's learned. She created an exercise in 1968 with her elementary school students, telling them that one eye color was better than the other, thus showing how racism is learned. A message shared by NAACP President Fred Royal.
The message that we have been delivering at the NAACP for years is that, especially in Milwaukee, is that this is one of the most racist cities that has institutional racism embedded in it.
She shared some of her thoughts with us on race and its effects.
People, it's time to give up the idea of 4 or 5 different races. There's only one, and you're all members of it. And when I have to fill in an application and it says race, I write human.
With the state of the country being what it is right now, let's have a conversation about race. How would a person go about having that conversation? What can they expect to happen in a conversation?
Well, the first thing they have to do is not talk about tolerance. I found out the day I was on the bottom in the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise with my students, I found out how it feels to be tolerated. I found out that tolerance means put up with or allow me to be. I don't need your allowance. And I don't need to be tolerated. I want to be valued, recognized, and appreciated. Put your tolerance where the sun doesn't shine. I do not believe in tolerance, because in this country, we tolerate zits when we're little, zits when we're teenagers, hot flashes when we're old, and the flu and bad weather in between. We tolerate ugly things that are going to go away. I don't intend to tolerate anyone. I intend to recognize, appreciate, and value people, not to tolerate them. And I have all kinds of respect for the man who is part of the tolerance group in Atlanta, maybe. I have all kinds of respect for those folks, but we've got to change it from tolerance, because the powerful can tolerate. The powerless have to wait to be tolerated.
A lot of people have criticized former President Obama was not speaking out on race enough. Do you think he failed in that?
What if he had spoken out enough on race? Imagine what would have happened to him. The man is still alive. Do you remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Do you remember Malcolm X? Do you remember all those people have been killed not because of the color of their skin, but because of the fear of white people, that someone who isn't white is going to look better, sound better, act better, do better than they do? Mr. Obama was the president of all of us. He wasn't just the president of black people. He was the president of all of us.
Let's talk a little bit about the president. Has racism risen under President Trump?
Absolutely, and it will continue to rise under President Trump. The man who's there now is and claims to be the president of the people who look like him. When he says, make America great again, what he's really saying is, make America hate again.
We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Marches here in Milwaukee, and that was an opportunity for blacks who were marching to live on the south side, live everywhere else except just being stuck on the north side. Today, most urban sectors, especially Milwaukee, remains hyper-segregated. Why is it taking so long, or why doesn't it seem like we can move the button on diversity in neighborhoods?
Because the people who have the power in this country are the people who have the money. And the people who have the money are going to decide where people live. You need to realize that there are more children attending segregated schools in the United States today than there were previous to Brown versus Board of Education. And that's a fact. You need to realize that it is not the intent of white people to let this situation change in favor of anyone but themselves. And right now, white people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg.
A lot of people don't understand the trauma associated with race and racism. Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it, one of the main traumas is, it tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. And then they find out suddenly that we've got a black president. That's traumatic. That's where the trauma is. Living a lie, finding out the truth is traumatic. Finding out now, recently, that within 30 years, white people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. And that's the reason we have to solve this problem, and we have to solve it now. I will ask folks tonight, how many of you black folks want to get even with all white people? And that's what white people are quite certain blacks are going to want to do, is get even with all white people. And nobody will raise their hand. And then I'll say, how many of you want to get even with one or two? Every hand will go up, and you know why, and so do I. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are. But if you want to get ready for the future, if you want to be treated well in the future, treat others well in the present. What we do in the present constructs the future. What we have done in the past, we can learn from that.
Despite what you may have heard, the Affordable Care Act is still with us. However, the annual sign-up time has been reduced. We're in it right now. City Health Commissioner Bevan Baker joins us to explain. It's been reduced to what? What are the time limits?
Well, we have from November 1st to the December 15th. So we only have about 45 days to make certain 6 weeks people to get into the enrollment process. It's reduced from 60 days that we had just a year ago.
So it's a short time, and you have to get into it and make your choices.
You have to make your choices, but there have been some changes, and the number one change has been cost sharing, where the insurers were to pick up some of the costs. Well, that has been changed through executive orders, and we expect some of those costs to be added to premiums for some individuals.
So who has to register, and who should register?
Well, anyone who had previously been a part of an exchange or a part of the Affordable Care and they had enrolled, they need to re-enroll. It's just like what we do in private and public institutions where we have enrollment every year for our health insurance. The same thing needs to happen for the Affordable Care Act. So everyone needs to go and shop. You may even find a better deal. For some, premiums may be higher, but for most, 90% of individuals are going to benefit from a subsidy.
If you signed up last year, 2016, do you have to do it again?
Yes, you do. You have to do it again, and we encourage people to go and shop. There have been some insurers who have left the marketplace, so it's important that people shop for the best deals. Some are going to be automatically assigned to some qualified health plans. You need to go out there and make certain you get the best deal. The same thing you would do if you were in your employer-based health plan.
If the provider you had last time has left the marketplace, were people notified? Do they know that?
They will be notified. I think the state of Wisconsin will do a great job in that. They will automatically assign them to another qualified health plan. However, it's important to go through the Affordable Care Act enrollment process, because you might find a better deal. But that's something the consumer has to do, and we want them to do that.
How do they do it? Where do we go? Who do we call? What are the steps?
Well, the easiest thing to do, if you can just remember 3 numbers, 211. If you call 211, they're going to be able to tell you where you can go for free to the closest in-person, face-to-face enrollment process. And that will be just seamless. The other thing is that you can contact the Milwaukee Health Department. We have people who will help you with enrollment. They're ready. They'll be ready November 1st, and they'll be on staff for the entire duration of the open enrollment process.
When somebody calls 211, are they going to be on hold for half an hour?
What I love about our partners at 211 is that they're an extension of our emergency system. They're equipped, they have a major call center, so you won't be waiting long. We encourage you to call as soon as you are able.
Many, many people have gone through this before. They've had health insurance before. They've gone through the Affordable Care Act. But for some people, this is the first time they've ever done this. What are some of the things they should look out for?
Well, I think one of the things you want to make certain is that you understand, that you want to have navigators. There are navigators who can assist you to make certain that you can choose the best system for you and your family. It's even complex for those of us who do it every year. So I think you want to make certain that you just understand what your options are, that you get the best coverage for you and your family. It's difficult, but there are navigators out there who will assist.
Does it take a long time to sign up?
Well, I think that depends. Every case is going to be different, but I think when you're making a decision, you want to make a careful decision in terms of what's best for you and your family. But the thing is, the clock's ticking. You have until December 15th, and if you want to have coverage January 1, you need to get it done in those 45 days.
If people want to sign up online, where do they go?
Again, we're going to refer people to either the coveringwisconsin.org website or 211. I prefer that people call 211 because you're going to get that individual, personal, face-to-face support, and they'll be able to have those websites. You can also contact the Milwaukee Health Department. We'll have links on our site, which will get you to the Affordable Care Act website. Little caution there. You can only go there Monday through Saturdays. The federal government has shut down the website on Sunday. Don't quite understand that, but that's the way it is.
So call 211 and you'll be able to get help. A lot of people, though, will be surfing on their phones and on their laptops, and they'll see some ads for some people who want to offer them health coverage. What should they be leery about?
I think buyer beware. I mean, there are a lot of folks out there who understand that individuals in desperate times might make some desperate decisions. But I think that there is materials out there. If you go to 211, if you go to the Milwaukee Health Department, the Milwaukee Enrollment Network, which is a sea of partners that we work with, you're going to get the help that you need and you won't get gouged. People do take advantage of most, but we have some systems in place to hopefully avoid that type of fraudulent activity.
How many people do you think are under the Affordable Care Act in Wisconsin?
Well, I know that right now there are tens of thousands who have benefited from it. 20 million people nationwide have taken advantage of the Affordable Care Act who didn't have coverage and had coverage. Just in Milwaukee County alone, with one insurer leaving, there's about 18,000 people who are going to be reassigned to a new qualified health plan, 55,000 across the state. So there are hundreds of thousands, upwards of 300,000 to 400,000 people who are benefiting from this and more. And Milwaukee's done a great job of enrollment. Remember, we won an award from the president for the city that enrolled the most individuals per capita.
We did. So give us the basics again. How do they get help? How long do they have to sign up?
Well, the key thing is the time, November 1st to December 15th. We have 6 weeks. It's a 6-week sprint to get enrollment. If you want to call 211, it's the easiest way because you're going to get that personalized, free, and let me say free, individual care, face-to-face to get enrollment. Also, the Milwaukee Health Department is there. We have individuals who will help you enroll. You can go to our website, milwaukee.gov/health, or you can actually, and this is another thing you can do, you can actually look toward the Affordable Care Act website itself, but only Monday through Saturdays.
Thank you very much, Bevan. The Affordable Care Act is still there, is still available. Let's hope people sign up. Thanks
I hope
for
people
coming.
sign up. Don't get caught by the confusion.
All right.
The Negro Leagues were the answer to baseball's segregated past. Organized by Andrew Rube Foster in 1920, they allowed black players to participate in America's pastime. Here, they could enjoy the game they loved to play.
Baseball addicts.
Reggie Howard got his start as a bat boy before getting to the Indianapolis Clowns.
Malcolm Mitch played with the Red Sox, the Memphis Red Sox in the 20s briefly. And it's just, our conversation was baseball, and mostly black baseball. And not after Jackie Robinson. This is before Robinson I was involved. Yeah. And I just love the game.
Don Porter started with the Black Yankees at age 16, earning him the name Rook for his career.
The guy that was managing the Indianapolis Clowns at the time knew both of my uncles. And they came through Little Rock, Arkansas, where I was raised up. And because they knew my uncles, and I was a pretty good baseball player, they gave me a tryout, and they picked me up after just one tryout.
They played at a time when there was a lot of discrimination, and black players were not allowed to play with Major League Baseball.
You knew there were unwritten rules, places that you couldn't go, you couldn't stay, you couldn't eat. So we all knew that. And the guys that had been out on the road longer than I have taught us the ropes. All the younger guys, they would tell you where you could eat, where you can't go, where we can stay, where we had to sleep on the bus tonight. Depends on what town we're in. So when you're in the South, it's rough. But then when you started coming up north, then you can stay where you want to. But you know, we knew the ropes, so we knew. Born in Little Rock, Arkansas, you know, segregation wasn't new to me.
In retrospect, it was great. But when you're going through it, it's tough. You know, going 300-400 miles sometimes a day, and staying in hotels and traveling in the buses, it can get kind of demanding on you.
But one tryout was all it took to lead to some great memories.
I was traveling all over the United States, playing in Yankee Stadium, playing in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Chicago. And then at the age of 16, it was just enlightening to me. And of course, some of the games, a lot of the people that I met, that some of the guys that I played for, Shoo Coleman went to the Mets, George Smith played for Detroit, so some of the guys that I played for really made it to the major leagues.
Oh boy, what was my fondest? I guess when I played my first game.
What was it like?
0 for 3, but just being in the lineup for the first time.
These men were inducted into the Negro League Hall of Fame through an annual celebration of the Negro Leagues at Miller Park.
Oh, I was a warning track power.
What does that mean?
That means you can hit the ball back to the track, but you can't hit it over the fence. Yeah, a lot of warning track players in that day. We had bigger ballparks. This was before the strike in '94 when they started making smaller parks.
But that swing did not keep him in the game.
I got so I couldn't throw, hurt my arm. And I was in the middle infielder. I hurt my arm and got so I couldn't throw. So if you can't throw, you can't play. And apparently I didn't have the skill level. I was decent, but maybe I didn't have the skill level to go there.
After playing 2 years, I didn't get signed, didn't get picked up by a major league team. So I decided to go in the military. So I went in the military and I played baseball in the military for my whole career. I was in special service, played baseball all over Germany and Texas for my 3 years that I was in the military. So I had a great military career, a lot of fun.
Those days were glorious, but Reggie would rather turn his attention to what's happening in the game now.
As I look at the percentages, just about 8% of Major League Baseball is U.S. blacks. And that bothers me tremendously. So that's the reason why I say we need to begin to concentrate our efforts on not what we once did or did not do, but we need to concentrate our efforts on helping the younger black kids to get into baseball.
In honor of the event, the Brewers Community Foundation will make a donation to both the Negro League Museum and yesterday's Negro League Baseball Players Foundation.
We think of Michael Holt as a community activist and journalist. He's the associate publisher of the Milwaukee Community Journal. Many people don't know he's a veteran, having served in Vietnam.
2 weeks after my 17th birthday, I was drafted by my parents and put into the Navy.
So you went to the Navy?
Yep. And, you know, one of the thoughts was, you know, Vietnam was raging at the time. One of the thoughts was that if I had to go to Vietnam, I would be on a ship, 5 miles off the coast, all of that kind of stuff. That's not the route I ended up taking. The Navy was actually the last branch of the military to integrate. So I made 2 Mediterranean cruises, and the black sailors mutinied. You won't find this in the history books anywhere, but we mutinied because I remember we had one black guy on our ship from New York, and he had an engineering degree, and he was on the deck force. We had black people with college degrees, and they were doing these menial tasks. So in the middle of the ocean, we set up everything. We took over the ship's armory. We locked up the Marine detachment that was on board the ship. And we stopped the ship in the middle of the ocean and demanded our rights. Of course, the captain agreed to everything we said until we got back to our base in Florida. Then everybody was court-martialed. I was court-martialed. And believe it or not, my mother engaged the NAACP in Milwaukee to contact the branch down in Jacksonville, Florida, and they actually represented me at my court-martial. So I ended up losing my stripes, and they sent me to Vietnam, but not on a ship. They sent me to Naval Special Forces. So I was sent out to California, and I took, I think it was 8 or 10 weeks of special amphibious training at the camp where the SEALs train, specialized training. So I was shore duty in Vietnam, which was not my goal at the time.
He's trying to forget the horrors of Vietnam. He said he was scared when he landed and felt that Vietnam heat.
The heat was just like, it literally knocked you back. It was like, and this is like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like 110 degrees. And the humidity was such that, you literally felt like you were walking through something. And so that first day they had little cots for us in a tent. And you can hear these bombs going off in the distance. And you're trying to sleep. And kind of like your whole life flashes before you. You think, will I ever leave here? Will I get out this place?
Being the only black person in his unit made him appreciate seeing and talking to other black veterans.
On the one hand, I was scared, immature. I felt safer in Vietnam than I oftentimes feel in Milwaukee. This is God's honest truth, I never walked past another black person my entire tour in Vietnam and he didn't speak. There was a sense of brotherhood that reminded me so much of the Million Man March. Every unit had their own what we call DAP. It's a fancy handshake, and it can get real elaborate.
Holt had a frightening experience, and not because of the Viet Cong.
It was because when I got there, nobody would talk to me. And I went to go eat lunch in the little tent. They would move away. They had made this little hut where they had a cooler and stuff, beer. And when I walked in there was a big, gigantic Confederate flag on the wall. I was most frightened because I was totally alone. That was the first time I actually slept on a cot with my hand on my .45. Every night. I was frightened of these guys who wouldn't talk to me. One of them called me the N-word, and it took all of me not to engage them.
The next story will make you smile.
My mother asked me what I want for Christmas. So I said, I want some pinto beans and cornbread. So she sent me some cornbread mix and some pinto beans. And I got from the mess tent some kind of salt pork or something. And had a little pot, and I couldn't do it in the mess tent, so I did it outside. We had a little fire, and I was boiling these beans with that salt pork in it, which is not healthy for you nowadays. And I made, I guess what you would call hot water cornbread. I just mixed it up and just threw it on a little griddle in the pan. Brothers start coming out from the jungle, from the huts, parachuted in, because they smelled these beans and salt pork and cornbread. You know, and we had a picnic. You know, I mean, you can't experience that. It took me a long time to get over some of this stuff. But Vietnam made me, and it actually made the community journal, per se, because it instilled in me this desire to do something for our community, to empower our community, so we will not make the same mistakes and be used like we were then.
Join us for the next edition of Black Nouveau on December 7th at 9 p.m. right here on Channel 10. Dr. Ramel Smith will tell us how to avoid the stressful situations during the holiday season. We'll profile a special African-American Latino orchestra called Sphinx Virtuosi. You know, now it's not just TV anymore. We're also on the web and on Facebook. We have exclusives like our extended interview with Jane Elliott, a profile of Kehinde Wiley, the artist that President Obama chose to do his official portrait. We'll also have a conversation with the heads of the MPS Black and Latino Male Achievement Program. We add new material every week, so look for us at MilwaukeePBS.org and like us on Facebook. That's our program for this month. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching.